Thank you, Mariella. And now we're going to have Legoff, who's going to talk about the recent parliamentary elections in France. When I met him yesterday, I asked him if he was a journalist, and he said yes, but actually I'm an activist first. I thought it was a very good way of describing him. Somebody who has his priorities straight. So, ladies and gentlemen, Jan Legoff.
Okay, you hear me? Okay. Well, thank you. Maybe I should introduce myself first. As you know, the Parti Ouvrier Indépendant, the POI, has endorsed the European appeal against war. We had the honor to host in Paris the conference that launched this appeal last May. I'm a member of the peer leadership, and I'm the editor-in-chief, of its weekly newspaper, Information Ouvrière, which was founded in 1958 by Pierre Lambert, a Trotskyist militant. And I'm very grateful to the Peace and Justice Party for welcoming us so warmly to this conference. So, when I heard Marielle, I told myself that I don't think it's a secret for anyone in this room that the labor movement, particularly in Europe, has been in deep crisis for years, if not decades. But today, this crisis is accelerating enormously. Firstly, because war has always been an acid test for the labor movement. I remember that in 1914, most of the leading members of the Second International sank into chauvinism and sacred unions with the warmongering governments. And today, major organizations that workers had set up to defend themselves and to be represented against the capitalists. Some of these organizations that have been set up or in existence for over a century find themselves taking up positions that are at odds with their traditions, whatever we may think of those traditions. For my part, I think it is not unconnected with the crisis of the capitalist system. Even the former rules of bourgeois democracy and national sovereignty are being called into questions, sometimes brutally, in the old nations of Europe. This crisis is producing monsters, but it is also unleashing new forces within the labor movement, new forces that challenges the old leaderships. It was in this general situation that La France Insoumise, or LFI, emerged in France and has greatly developed over the past 2 or 3 years based on an orientation of breaking with the system, with the policies of previous governments of both right and left. My party, the POI, decided to join LFI, its action groups, without dissolving itself, without renouncing anything of its positions. One of our comrades, Jérôme Legoff, has been elected Member of Parliament for LFI in 2022. On some issues, we have nuances with the LFI program. But because we are loyal, because we are concerned to develop LFI, we can freely set out our positions in our journal, in the debates held in LFI action groups with the aim of convincing by freely confronting points of views. So now, what happened in France in the last 15 days? Well, as you know, French President Macron suffered a real debacle in the European elections of June 9th. For its part, LFI, whose historic leader is Jean-Luc Mélenchon, gained 1 million votes with impressive scores, sometimes exceeding 50%, where the country's most exploited population is concentrated. Elsewhere, rejection of Macron dominated with the vote for Marine Le Pen and Jordan Bardella, leaders of the Rassemblement National, the far right. They came out well ahead with 31% of the vote. In the wake of the results announced on June 9th, Macron announced the dissolution of the National Assembly and the calling of early legislative elections on June 30th and July 7th. Everyone understood the magnitude of the shock to come. Macron opened the doors of power to the far right and the possibility of a Macron-Bardella government. In the hours and days that followed, young people took the streets and demanded the unity of the LFI, the Socialist Party, the Communist Party, and the Green Party, to present a single candidate in each constituency to block the way to the far right and Macron-backed candidates. It was in these circumstances that the New Popular Front, or NFP, and we say in French, was born. And in front of, I remember it, I was there, in front of the building where the negotiations that gave birth to the NFP were taking place, a mass of young people chanted, "Don't betray us, don't betray us." The entire system put in place for months by the leaders of the Socialist Party, the Communist Party and the Greens to liquidate LFI in agreement with Macron and the ruling circles of finance capital has been shattered. Even the Conseil représentatif des institutions juives de France, the representative council of the Jewish institutions in France, has vehemently protested against the birth of the New Popular Front because this front included LFI. In the eyes of this council, as in the eyes of the ruling class and of the mainstream media, LFI's crime is to have participated in, encouraged, and organized mobilizations in defense of the Palestinian people during the last 8 months. I should point, yes, although the NFP is systematically denounced as an alliance with the anti-Semites of LFI, echoing tenfold the odious campaign orchestrated over the last 8 months, over 20,000 people, mainly young people, joined LFI action groups in the 3 days to take action and defeat the Macron far-right duo. In fact, 40,000 had done so by last Tuesday, 10 days after June 9th. And let me be clear, they haven't joined the Communist Party or the Socialist Party. They have joined LFI, which they identify with their desire for a break with the past. Under this pressure, and feeling the loss of their posts and their parliamentary group, the leaders of the Socialist Party, the Communist Party and the Greens have signed an agreement with the distribution of constituencies that puts LFI in the first place. Although these leaders had done everything in their power to isolate LFI in the preceding month, but they had no choice. The political crisis also engulfed the main right-wing party of the Fifth Republic, which is called Les Républicains, whose leader forged an alliance with the RN, the far right, in a putsch that liquidated the leadership of this party. French political life is now polarized between two camps, the LFI and the far right, the RN. And in the middle, you have a swamp of Macron-compatible MPs who are now on borrowed time. Business circles are most concerned about the political and social instability of the situation the country is re-entering, as hundreds of thousands of people took the streets across the country on the weekend of June 15th and 17th. The bosses are seeking to strengthen the far right and weaken the new Popular Front, including from within the Popular Front, by violently targeting LFI and Jean-Luc Mélenchon, and by investing former President François Hollande, who, despite the reluctance of the General Secretary of the Socialist Party and the disgust of many militants, is using the Popular Front label, but with the support of Macron. And we have plenty of other examples like this. The masses are enraged by these maneuvers, but they want first and foremost to prevent the far right from gaining power. In the eyes of the people, of all these young people, even the program of the Popular Front is, how can I say it, in the back seat, even though it includes breakthrough measures like the repeal of the pension reform, which mobilized millions of workers and young people a year ago, the repeal of the immigration law, the repeal of the unemployment insurance reform. It includes also the price freeze, a 50% increase in the minimum wage, and a 10% rise in civil servant salaries, and development and public services, and so on. But as a consequence of this situation and the battle within this new Popular Front, this program, the program of the new Popular Front, also includes support for Ukraine. It's a fact. Which capital and its representative has used this issue of Ukraine, have used to prevent the formation of this Popular Front, including LFI. So what is my opinion? And maybe we could discuss it. Like all program in an electoral campaign aimed at uniting the front against the far right, it includes compromises on which positions may differ, even within the parties. This is the case with Ukraine, and this issue has been the subject of debate since the beginning. But it's a given that the overwhelming majority of the population is in favor of peace and does not want a war economy, let alone the dispatch of troops in Ukraine. And it's a fact that when Zelensky visited a few weeks ago the French National Assembly, most of the LFI deputies, MPs, were absent, which earned them hysterical accusation on TV to be Putinist and so on. That's why we are continuing our fight to convince people that this war is in the interest of neither Russian nor Ukrainian workers, and that we need peace now. And to convince activists, we are especially relying on the campaign to sign the European appeal against the war. It's very important for us. The whole situation leads us to be part of the new Popular Front and to dismiss misguided comparison with the Front Populaire, or the Popular Front of 1936. My opinion is that a major confrontation is underway in which we are fully involved, including within the trade unions and all the organizations. A big shock is coming, class against class. I'm convinced on that. Thank you very much.